The night was unusually quiet as Mark, a seasoned taxi driver, sat behind the wheel of his old cab. The headlights cut through the darkness of the empty streets, casting long shadows. He had just finished a long shift, but there were still a few more hours left before he could head home. As he cruised along the dimly lit roads, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It was the kind of night when even the city seemed to hold its breath. As Mark approached an old deserted street on the outskirts of town, he saw a figure standing by the curb. A woman. Her dark, hooded figure was barely visible in the pale glow of the streetlights. She raised her hand, signaling for a ride. Mark slowed down, rolled down the window, and offered her a ride, despite the fact that the neighborhood seemed like a place to avoid. She didn't speak much at first. Her face was partially hidden in the shadows of her hood. Mark, used to quiet passengers, didn't mind. He focused on the road ahead, but something about her presence was unsettling. There was a coldness in the air that seemed to follow her. As they drove, Mark couldn't help but glance at her through the rearview mirror. Her eyes were dark, almost hollow, and she seemed to be staring at him, but not really seeing him. It was as if she was lost in some distant memory. Mark tried to shake off the feeling of discomfort, chalking it up to exhaustion, but the more he drove, the more uneasy he became. Minutes passed. The streetlights outside grew dimmer as they drove deeper into the outskirts of the city, toward an area Mark didn't recognize. It was a part of town that looked abandoned, desolate. The houses were run down, windows boarded up, and there was a silence in the air that felt unnatural. No sounds of traffic, no distant voices, just the eerie hum of the taxi's engine. The woman in the back seat remained still. Her eyes, though distant, seemed to follow the road with an unsettling intensity. Her gaze locked on the darkness outside. Mark's grip on the steering wheel tightened. He didn't know why, but something was wrong. Suddenly, the air inside the taxi grew colder, a chill that seemed to seep into his bones. Mark glanced at the woman again in the rearview mirror, but this time, her eyes were wide open, staring directly at him. He felt a wave of fear wash over him, but when he looked back, she was still staring blankly out the window. "Where are you headed?" Mark asked, trying to make small talk to break the silence. His voice sounded unnaturally loud in the stillness of the cab. The woman remained silent. The only sound was the faint hum of the engine. Mark, trying to ignore the growing tension, turned down another street, but something was wrong. The street signs were faded, hard to read. The houses along the road were dark, their windows cracked or missing entirely. This wasn't a part of town he'd ever driven through, and he had been a driver for over 10 years. He knew the city like the back of his hand. Minutes turned into what felt like hours as the taxi moved deeper into this strange, forgotten part of town. Mark's heart raced. He had to ask, "Where do you want me to drop you off?" But the woman remained silent. Just as Mark was about to ask again, the taxi's lights flickered. A soft, static-like noise crackled through the radio, and the temperature inside the cab dropped even further. Mark could see his breath in the air. He quickly glanced in the rearview mirror again. This time, her face wasn't just pale, it was ashen, almost lifeless. Fear gripped Mark's chest. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. "I think I've taken a wrong turn," Mark said, trying to force calm into his voice. "I'll take you back to the main road, all right?" But the woman didn't respond. Instead, her hand moved slowly towards the door handle. Mark, panicked, decided to speed up, but the road ahead seemed to stretch endlessly. The trees on either side of the street loomed like dark sentinels, blocking out the moonlight. Suddenly, the woman spoke. Her voice was low, distorted, like it came from far away. "Stop the car." Mark froze. His foot hovered over the pedal. He looked at her in the mirror, her eyes now wide open, staring directly into his soul. "Stop the car," she repeated, her voice now colder, almost inhuman. His hands trembled as he pulled over to the side of the road. The car came to a halt in front of a decrepit, abandoned house. The woman didn't move. She just sat there, staring at him, her lips curling into a slow, sinister smile. Mark's breathing quickened. He couldn't take his eyes off her. But before he could make sense of the situation, the woman's voice spoke once more, but this time, it wasn't hers. It was a deep, guttural tone coming from somewhere within her, as if the very air around them had changed. "You should have never picked me up." Suddenly the air grew thick, and Mark felt his throat tighten. He couldn't breathe. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. The temperature dropped to freezing levels, and the headlights of the car dimmed, casting eerie shadows on the abandoned house in front of them. Mark's hands froze on the wheel. He couldn't move. Something was pulling at him, a force beyond his control. His vision blurred, and the woman's figure began to distort, her body twisting and warping. In the mirror, her face was no longer human. It was something otherworldly. Her eyes were black voids, her skin pale and decaying. A skeletal hand reached out from the back seat, wrapping around his neck. Mark struggled, gasping for air, but it was no use. His body felt cold and numb, and his vision went dark. In that instant, the last thing he saw before everything went black was the woman's smile. The smile of something that had waited for him, patiently, for years. When the morning sun rose over the city, the taxi was found abandoned on the side of the road. The engine was still running, and the door was wide open. But there was no sign of Mark, no evidence of where he went, or what had happened to him. The police searched the area, but there was no trace of the driver. The woman, too, had vanished, as if she had never been there at all. But every now and then, on quiet, moonless nights, some say they hear the sound of a car driving through the deserted streets of the city. And if you're unlucky enough to be out there, you might just see a figure standing on the side of the road, waiting for the last ride. And if you stop, it might be your last.